Okay na siya eh.
So, good morning everyone. Together with Miss Eliza Parba and Joshua Perea, we are the facilitators for this learning episode entitled Utilizing Web Conferencing Apps for Synchronous E-Learning. So, before we go to further discussion, um, I have a question first about who has any idea about this topic. So you can raise your virtual hands if you want to answer. Yes, Miss Bernadine?
Yes, good morning, ma'am. So I think this topic is taught us about using web conferencing applications like what we are utilizing now, the Google Meet, and as well as also the Zoom to conduct real-time online classes where teachers and students can interact, discuss, and learn together even they are not in the same place. That's all, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Bernadine. So it's correct. So web conferencing apps are essential for synchronous e-learning, offering features that enhance instruction and engagement. So before that, let us know first our intended learning outcomes. So our intended learning outcomes at the end of this learning episode, you must be able to identify features and functions of web conferencing applications that are useful to instruction, demonstrate skills in using a web conferencing app for synchronous teaching and learning, PPST 4.5.1, demonstrate positive attitude towards use of technology tools, ICT, CST 7.1.2, and last is use professional reflection and learning to improve practice, PPST 7.4.1. Next slide, please. So, the call of the times has made it more necessary for future teachers like us to develop skills in planning, implementing, and managing remote learning. So, one form of remote learning is done online. Online remote learning can be done synchronous, like what we do today. It is called synchronous, where the teacher and students meet and interact in real time, and asynchronous when learning is supported by prepared materials and there is no real-time interaction between the teacher and the learners. So masabtan raman no ang synchronous and asynchronous kay we all know about that kung synchronous is we do online no, like mao ni atong gabuhaton karon then mag-meet yun ta at natay specific nga time, and asynchronous which is maghatag lang ang instructor or teachers o material sa GCR para mag-answer ta sa atoang activity. That's all. Next slide please. So, in this episode, we will focus on synchronous sessions. In order to hold synchronous classes, we will need to um, use web conferencing apps. Some LMS or learning materials already have this embedded and some do not. So we will need to know how to access, evaluate, and utilize the features and functions of apps like Zoom, Google Meet, Microsoft Teams, Skype, and even Messenger. Next slide please. So, since wala man naka-report ang previous episode katong learning episode 14, the TPAC model sila unta ang ilahang ma-discuss ang TPAC model, which is ga-guide sa atua on how to best utilize web conferencing apps when conducting synchronous learning experience. Um, and this episode, another full model that can guide us is the Community of Inquiry Model, or COI. And in the Community Inquiry Model, there are three elements. The first one is the teaching presence, which is about basic teaching tasks. And the second element is the social presence, which focuses on establishing a sense of belonging to a community. And the third one is the cognitive presence, which fosters critical thinking and engagement. So later on, it will be discussed further by my co-facilitator. So while the educational experience referred to in the community um, of inquiry model may also refer to face modality. So in this episode, we will use the COI model and its three elements in the context of online learning, specifically the synchronous class. So like I said earlier, we should in this episode we should know the features and functions of the infographic, the most common web conferencing apps. Next slide, please. And these are the Zoom, Google Meet, Skype, Facebook Messenger Rooms, and Microsoft Teams. So the first one, um, Zoom, let us know their features and functions. So the first one is Zoom. The data usage is 1.62 to 2.4 gigabytes per hour. It has a free basic account. The time limit is 40 minutes per meeting. The maximum participant is 100, and the features include recording, breakout rooms, screen share, polling, it must be paid account, and raise hand. And the second one is Google Meet. Data usage is approximately 1.4 gigabyte per hour. It has a free basic account. The limit is 1 hour per meeting, and the maximum participant is 100. And its features include recording, it must be paid account, breakout rooms, it also must be paid account, screen share, and raise hand must be paid account. The next web conferencing app is Microsoft Teams. Data usage is 450 to 675 MB per hour. It has a free basic account. The time limit is 1 hour per meeting. The maximum participant is 100, and its features include recording for paid account only, breakout rooms, screen share, polling, and raise hand. And the next one is Skype. Data usage is 225 MB to 3.6 gigabytes per hour. It is free. The time limit is 4 hours per meeting, and the maximum participant is 100. And the features include recording, screen share, polling must be paid account, and raise hand. And the last is Facebook Messenger Rooms, or the Messenger. The data usage is 40 MB to 1 gigabyte per hour. It is free. There is no time limit. The maximum participant is 50, and the screen share can be viewed for up to 16 participants only. And the features include polling in Messenger chat. So among these common web conferencing apps, as a future teacher, which web conferencing tool is the best for you and your class? Again, as a future teacher, which web conferencing tool is the best for you and your class? Who has an idea? Yes, Kathy?
For me, Ma'am Kai, I would choose the Google Meet because pwede na mo for example, parehas ani pwede na mo magklase maskin wala mo nag-uban, then also napod siya Google Class, napod um connected yapon siya sa Google Classroom, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Kathy. Your idea is very informative. Another idea? Okay, since wala na yun, gusto mag-share, so um, this common web conferencing apps are very useful no as a future teachers like Messenger kay through Messenger ang uso jud karon is Messenger kaning Google Meet. It's because kung walay klase or busy ang teacher, pwede ta mag-class into online session. So this web conferencing apps is very helpful jud siya sa atua. So that's my part. May I call on Miss Eliza Parbat to discuss further about this learning episode. Thank you.
Okay, good morning everyone. So today I will discuss to you the Community of Inquiry or the COI model. So this is the model. Ay, balik sa Josh. So this is the model, the Venn diagram model. So here in the middle, you can see the educational experience with supporting outcomes and etc. Kaya di mo siya maklaro, no? So this COI model is a framework para mas effective ang learning sa online or blended classes. And it focuses on the three main elements: the cognitive presence, the social presence, and the teaching presence, each with different specific indicators. So here, next slide please, Josh. Thank you. So first is we have here the teaching presence. So, ang teaching presence, it is a role or a guide for teachers that focuses on the design, organizes, and direct learning. So, it ensures that the lessons are clear and engaging. So, the indicators for the teaching presence is the design and organization, the facilitating discourse, and the direct instruction. Next, we have here the social presence, and it highlights the importance of communication and connection. It helps learners express themselves and build relationship in the learning community. The indicators is effective expression, open communication, and the group cohesion. The next one, we have here the cognitive presence, and it involves deep thinking, reflection, and understanding, which learners make sense of what they learn and apply it in a real-life situation. The indicators are the triggering event, the exploration, the integration, and the resolution. So in short, this model emphasizes that effective learning happens when teaching, communication, and thinking work hand in hand, creating a rich and meaningful educational experience. So next slide. So no, para ma-widen pa ang ato ang panghuna-huna, this is the reaching the three elements again, the three key elements of the COI model. First, again, the teaching presence, where the design, facilitation, and the direct direction of the cognitive and social processes to achieve learning outcomes. So, um, the indicators is the design, organization, structure, and planning of the course, setting curriculum, and establishing time parameter. And then the next slide. Next slide, please. The facilitating discourse, encouraging participation and maintaining student engagement. And then the direct instruction, providing expertise, clarifying content, and giving feedback to guide the learners. So, in short, ang kaning teaching presence is all about how the teachers design, leads, and supports learning inside the classroom. Next slide. So that's my part. May I call on Mr. Josh to continue the lesson?
I'm audible po ba? Ayun. Now, I will be continue the three parts or the three phase of the COI model po, which is the second one is the social presence. Now, according to Garrison, Anderson, and Archer in the year of 2000, social presence is the ability of participants in a learning community to project their personal characteristics into the online environment, thereby presenting themselves as real people. Now, in simple terms of this social presence, it refers to the feeling of being socially and emotionally connected with others during the learning process. I want you to note this phrase, feeling of being socially and emotionally connected, because we will focusing on this phrase later on. Now, when learners feel that their classmates and teachers are real, kung mafe-feel po o kung mararamdaman po ng mga learners po natin na ang kanilang classmates at ang kanilang mga teachers, tayo as a future educator, na tayo po ay totoo at mararamdaman nila ang presensya po natin, they are more likely to participate po. Mas maiengganyo po ang mga learners kung mararamdaman ang presensya po natin. More likely to participate, express their opinions. Kumbaga is ma-express po nila ang kanilang bawat opinion po. At sila po ay makikisalamuha openly o to collaborate openly. Now, what are the purpose of this social presence? There are four purposes of the social presence. The number one is to create a safe, trusting environment for communication. Now, if we say trusting environment, if the learners feel our presence as teachers and their classmates, doon na po mabubuo ang trust. Ang trust, kumbaga, di ba po, kung tayo po ay um, mararamdaman natin ang isang presensya ng, kunyari po, ang mahal po natin sa ay taong mahal po natin, kung mararamdaman natin ang presensya niya, doon po mabibuild ang trust po natin. Dahil kung hindi po, kunyari po, kung meron pong boyfriend or girlfriend, kung hindi po mararamdaman ng girlfriend ang presensya ng boyfriend, kunyari po is hindi na po siya nagparamdam, doon na po mawawala ang trust. Ayun po, kaya po sobrang mahalaga po na kaya po sobrang mahalaga po na maramdaman po ng estudyante po natin ang ating presensya to trust the environment to communication. And the other purpose of the social presence is to encourage collaboration and reduce feelings of isolation. Kung maramdaman po ng estudyante ang presensya po natin, hindi na po sila mag-isa, kundi po magiging dalawa na sila at magiging, just like what I've said kanina, socially and emotionally connected with others. Ayun po. And the third one is to promote motivation and engagement among learners. And the last one, to support emotional expression, making learning more enjoyable. Now, let's proceed to the indicators of the social presence. There are three indicators of the social presence. Ngayon po is himay-himayin po natin ang bawat indicators na ito. The number one is the affective expression. Now, affective expression refers to how learners share emotions, values, and attitudes to express themselves genuinely. Now, it includes the use of humor, self-disclosure, and emotion sharing in messages or discussions po. Now, the examples of the affective expression is, ang kunyari, sasabihin po ng estudyante po natin na kung mararamdaman po ang presensya po natin, I really enjoyed this topic today. Talagang na-enjoy ko talaga ang topic na ito because I feel the presence of my classmates, I feel the presence of my teacher, kaya sobrang na-enjoy ko ang topic. Ayun po yung example. Now, the other example is, kumbaga sa while tayo ay natuturo using emojis sa online class or expressing personal experience related to the topic. And last examples is sharing supportive messages like sasabihin po natin na you did a great job on that presentation. Kumbaga, kung masasabi natin yun is lalong maingganyo ang estudyante natin na dahil alam nila na merong nakikinig sa kanila na merong socially and emotionally connected sa kanila. And this effective expression helps others feel that there are real people behind the screens. Now, the second indicators of the social presence is the open communication. It refers to interactive and respectful dialogue among participants. The learners openly exchange ideas. Mag-exchange po sila ng mga ideas, respond to comments, and build on others' contributions. Now, the examples of this are rather replying to peers' posts with agreement or thoughtful disagreement, asking questions to clarify or extend discussion points, acknowledging others' contributions, just like I agree with your point. Just like Mary Grace, I agree with your point, Mary Grace, because ayun na, um, depende na kung ano ang kasunod nun. Now, the open communication, this promotes collaboration and deep interaction. Kaya po sinabi po na open communication, there are collaboration and deep interaction. Now, the third indicators or the last indicators of the social presence is the group cohesion. Group cohesion refers to building a sense of belonging and community within the group. Learners identify themselves as part of a team and work cooperatively toward shared goals. Now, there are examples of the group cohesion. The first one is using inclusive language like we or we, our group, or and team. Ayun po, na kailangan po na maging mapagbantay po tayo kung ano po yung gagamitin natin mga words. Because if we say group cohesion, ibig po sabihin yan is plural. Group, ibig po sabihin is maramihan po. So, kailangan po natin na sasabihin po natin sa ating mga learners na or sa ating mga peers is we. Dapat hindi po tayo magsulo o maging selfish. Dapat gagamitin po natin na we na hindi po dapat na ay ako lang ang mag-isa gumawa, ako lang ang magaling. Hindi po. Dapat po we as a team, we as a group, and we as a group. Ayun po. And the other examples is encouraging peers and celebrating collective success. And the third one is creating group norms and supporting each other in discussions. Now, group cohesion, this transforms the class from individual learners into a learning community. Ayun po. Now, let's proceed to the third and last um, phase of the COI model. Now, before we proceed to the last, which is the cognitive presence, I want to summarize the social presence. Now, the affective expression in simple terms of this is sharing emotions and personal experiences. The purpose of this is build authenticity and warmth, while the open communication, interactive dialogue, encourages mutual understanding, and the third one is group cohesion. In simple terms, is sense of belonging and promotes collaboration and trust. Now, let's proceed to the third and last presence of the COI model, which is the sorry, which is the excuse me, which is the cognitive presence. Now, cognitive presence is the ability of learners to construct and confirm meaning through sustained reflection and discourse, according to Garrison in the year of 2001. Just like what Shira said kanina, the cognitive presence is more likely critical thinking. Now, it represents the critical thinking process that leads to deep understanding and knowledge construction within a learning community. Now, uh, simply put, cognitive presence is about how learners to think. Kung paano po ang isang learners na magti-think, na magre-reason at mag-apply what they learn. Ayun po. And the purpose of the cognitive presence are to guide learners in moving from curiosity to understanding, to develop higher order thinking skills like analysis, synthesis, and evaluation, to help students apply new knowledge in real life or professional context. Now, there are four indicators of the cognitive presence. The number one is the triggering event. Now, the starting point of learning where a problem, issue, or question arises that sparks curiosity. Examples of this are: why do some students engage less in group activities? How can teachers motivate learners in online settings? This space encourages inquiry and exploration. Kung magtatanong po tayo nito at kung magtuturo tayo nito is magkakaroon ng curiosity yung mga learners natin at doon na po mabibuild ang pagtatanong nila dahil gusto nila malaman doon sa tinuro natin o doon sa tanong natin, gusto nilang malaman yung kasagutan. Kaya doon po magkakaroon sila ng critical thinking or cognitive presence. Ayun po. The triggering event, which is the learners begin to ask meaningful questions. Nabantayan nyo, kapag ang isang bata ay magtatanong ng sobrang meaningful na questions is, ibig po sabihin niya na curious ang isang bata doon. Diba? Mapapansin natin, kunyari, ang kapatid natin, kung magtatanong sila ng isang meaningful na tanong, ang ibig po sabihin niya na curious sila, na gusto nila malaman kung ano ba ang kasagutan doon sa specific na question na yon. Ayun po ang purpose ng katanungan at ng kung paano sila mag-think, mag-reason at kung paano sila mag-apply what they learn. Now, let's proceed to the second indicators of the cognitive presence, which is the exploration. The learners search for information. Dito na po magsa-search ng information ang learners. Kumbaga po sa triggering event, dito po magkakaroon ng problem, ng issue at ng question. So sa exploration, mag-explore ang learners para po mag-search ng information doon sa specific na question. Naiintindihan po ba? To brainstorm ideas and discuss possible explanations. Now, the examples of these are reading related articles or materials. Mababantayan na po natin ang mga bata o ang mga learners natin kung magbabasa po sila ng related articles. I know na sa articles is hindi pa po ata medyo ano ang bata, let's say na mga libro. Doon po, kung magbabasa po sila ng mga libro, nagse-search po sila ng information. Ayan po. And the other examples of the exploration is discussing possible answers with peers. Ayun, dito po. Nabantayan nyo sa mga bata na kapag merong katanungan, di ba mag-share tayo po, di ba po tayo? Kapag meron tayong katanungan, i-share natin sa kaibigan natin yung mga possible na answer. Okay, ginto pala yung answer na yun, di ba? Alam mo yun, Mare, na ginto ganyan. Doon na po magbibuild ang isang learners na magsa-search po ng information through discussing possible answers with peers. Naiintindihan po ba? Now, sorry naman. Sorry. Ayun. The last example of the exploration is, I think it's because of limited internet access or lack of motivation. Kapag sinabi na po ng learners na I think, ibig po sabihin niyan is doon na po na nagsisearch na po siya ng information, nagbe-brainstorm ng ideas and discuss possible explanations. Now, exploration, which is the learners gather ideas and evidence to understand the issue. Uulitin ko, triggering event, meaningful questions. Begin to ask meaningful questions while the exploration gather ideas and evidence to understand the issue. Ayun. And the third indicators of the cognitive presence is the integration. Now, integration, which is the learners connect ideas. Kaya po, tinawag po na integration na pagtagpi-tagpi sa Tagalog. O to connect ideas from different sources and form meaningful conclusions or hypotheses. Reflection is important here to organize and synthesize knowledge. Now, the examples of the integration is based on our readings. feedback from teachers plays a major role in student engagement. And the other example is creating concept maps or summaries of insights. Ayan po. The integration, which is the learners start to make sense of what they discovered. Kumbaga, ang indicators nito is para siyang step by step kung paano mag-think, mag-reason, at kung paano mai-apply ng isang learners ang isang specific na topic na diniscuss natin o ang specific na question. Ayan po. Now, let's proceed to the last and fourth indicators of the cognitive presence, which is the resolution. The resolution, which is the learners applying new knowledge to practical situations and test their understanding. This phase shows that learning has occurred through application and evaluation. The examples of this is implementing strategies to increase participation, reflecting on how theory applies to real classroom challenges. Now, the resolution, which is the learners demonstrate deep understanding through action. Ayan po, ulitin ko. Ang triggering event is which is learners begin to ask meaningful questions. Mag-a-ask po sila ng meaningful questions. The exploration, gather ideas and evidence to understand the issue. Kumbaga, kung meron ng meaningful questions, doon na po maghahanap ng gather ideas and evidence to understand the issue. The integration, kung meron ng tanong, kung mag-gather na ng ideas, doon na po mag-start ng make sense of kung ano yung na-discover nila. Kung ano yung na-discover nila doon sa specific na question. And the last step is the resolution, kung meron ng question, kung nakapag-gather na sila ng ideas, at kung na-discover na nila kung ano yung nag-gather nila na ideas, doon na po ma-demonstrate o ma-apply ng isang learners ang isang specific na question o topic. Na iintindihan po ba? Now, in summary of this, the cognitive presence, triggering event, recognizing a problem or question, exploration, searching for ideas and data, integration, combining and reflecting on ideas, resolution, applying new knowledge. Now, the um, the social and cognitive presence are independent. The social presence builds the trust and connection necessary for learners to communicate openly, while the cognitive presence develops when learners engage in deep discussion supported by that trust. Without social presence, discussions may feel mechanical. Without cognitive presence, discussions may be friendly but lack intellectual depth. Together, they create a balanced and effective learning experiences, the teaching presence, the social presence, and the cognitive presence. The teaching presence provides structure and direction. The social presence creates connection and community, and the cognitive presence ensures critical thinking and understanding. Together, they form a complete and dynamic learning experience where students feel guided, which is the teaching presence, emotionally connected, the social presence, intellectually, intellectually challenged, the cognitive presence. When one is weak, the overall learning experience suffers. When all three are strong, learners achieve deep, meaningful, and collaborative learning, the true goal of education. And I want to um, iwan itong phrase na ito o quotes na ito, if you want to be a good teacher, be a good listener. Ayun naman po. Thank you so much.
So good morning once again, class. So today we're going to tackle the episode 16, which is the assessing for as end of learning. So next slide, please. Assess to learn, not just to score. So in this statement, we can still recall the three assessment phrases that we have already met in our assessment courses, which is the assessment for learning, assessment of learning, and assessment as learning. So next slide, please. So these are the objectives or the intended learning outcomes that you should acquire at the end of this lesson. So you should, at the end of this episode, you all should be able to distinguish among assessment for learning, assessment as learning, and assessment of learning, and cite ways of doing assessments for learning and assessment as learning. Also to explain the effects of assessment for learning and assessment as learning on a summative assessment. Next slide, please. So as what I mentioned a while ago, there are three types of assessment. The first one is assessment for learning. It is known as the formative assessment. The second one is the assessment of learning. It also refers to the summative assessment that the students will do. And the third one is the assessment as learning. It is refers on the self-assessment. Next slide, please. So these are the key differences of those assessments. So assessment for learning, it is the assessment for learning or the formative assessment. It helps the students to improve learning during or it improve learning during the process. So this assessment is in the during the process of learning. Meanwhile, the assessment as learning, it is assessment as learning or self-assessment. This is where you monitor students to reflect on their own learning. And the assessment of learning, it is the summative assessment, or this would measure what students have learned after the instruction. So if the assessment for learning is learning process, it is during the learning process. Meanwhile, the assessment as learning, it is the self-assessment. You will monitor the students' learning while they reflect on their learning process. And the assessment of learning, it is the time where you score or you measure what the students have already learned. So next slide, please. So why do we assess? So we assess to check students' understanding and progress. If we, the teacher, notice that students are not learning as expected, we immediately take action such as giving positive feedback, clarifying lessons, or reteaching. So to help them, the students, to have improvements and to assess the students who have developments in learning. In short, we gave them remedial steps or enforcement to help have more comprehensive understanding of the concepts. So, formative assessments. It helps teachers to respond when students show signs of difficulty. So, there are signs of students that they need help. So, for example, when students says, um, I have a question. I need help. I don't get it. So these statements or these remarks from the student tells us that they need support. No? So and that's the perfect time that we the teachers can intervene and guide them. So as a future teachers, we really need to be attentive every time and to have a keen awareness and monitor our students, especially those who are in the category of slow learners, to still manage to meet their diverse need as possible and to give appropriate learning intervention that needed. So to sum up, assessment for learning helps us guide students during the learning process, not just after it. It's all about identifying needs early and taking steps to ensure every learner succeeds. So, next slide. So, this slide will be tackled by my co-facilitator. Thank you.
So good morning, everyone. Am I audible? Hello? Uh,
Yes, Ate
so
Bird.
good, so good morning. So assessment as learning. The phrase assessment as learning implies that assessment itself is already an opportunity for learning. So who among you here does have an idea of this phrase? Just raise your virtual hand. So none, I think none. So this phrase means that assessment is not just a tool for measuring what students know, but as a learning process in itself. So when students reflect on their own performance, identify their strengths and weaknesses, and make adjustment, they become active agent of their own learning. So it is also stated that assessment as learning is a concrete manifestation of the concept of learner agency, which means that the learner is ultimately responsible for his or her own learning, for nobody can do the learning for him or herself. So this empowers students because no one else can learn for them. They must take responsibility for understanding and improving. So in simple terms, students learn through process of assessing themselves, and self-assessment builds independence, responsibility, and deeper understanding. So next slide, please. Just next slide. So here are the list of example of questions that learners ask when they are engaged in assessment as learning. So first is the learners ask, do I their own their self. Number one, do I set my own learning target based on the learning outcomes the teacher present at the beginning of the lesson? Second, do I monitor my learning progress in relation to my learning target? Third, am I content with how am I progressing? Why or why not? And lastly is any adjustment, remedial measures that I have to take for learning to the maximum and optimum. So through through this question makabaluta nga ang student or ang learner is naka-engage siya o ga-engage siya or nakasunod gid siya sa ato ang this lesson. So, next slide, please. So, here is the example of student self-assessment rubric. So, as you can see in sa number one is novice. So, it means that the student cannot do the task alone and does not understand yet. And then the second one is developing, which is sometimes student need help and starting to understand. So it means that the student sometimes needs help and starting to understand the task. And third is proficient. So it means that the student can do the task independently with only few or minor mistakes. And the fourth one is exceeds. The student can do the task perfectly and can even help others. So, in conclusion, the student self-assessment rubric support assessment as learning by giving learners a simple way to reflect on their own abilities, recognize their progress, and identify what they still need to improve. By honestly rating themselves from novice to exceeds, students develop responsibility for their own learning and become active participants in the learning process rather than passive receivers of feedback. This process strengthens learner agency and help them make meaningful and steps toward mastery. So, to understand better formative assessment, may I call on Pinky to discuss the topic. That's all. Thank you.
The formative assessment versus the summative assessment. So the formative assessment is the assessment for learning. Its purpose is ongoing and diagnostic aimed at monitoring progress and improving learning in real time. So in summative assessment is the assessment of learning. It is a final evaluation typically given at the end of the unit of course to measure overall mastery and student achievement. So formative assessment for staff is to monitor students' learning. to ascertain progress, to check understanding, and to teach responsibly. And summative assessment for staff is to measure whether a student has met learning outcomes to make further improvements in future iterations. So their similarities is to assess students' learning and opportunities to give and receive feedback. Next slide, please. So formative assessment for students is to evaluate their own learning, to build knowledge, to identify strengths and weaknesses, and to continually improve learning. Summative assessment for students to understand their overall performance, to understand whether they have met the learning outcomes and to what extent at the end of the unit of study. Their similarities are they are evaluate the effectiveness of teaching. So formative assessment provide the end process data necessary to make immediate corrections and improve students' learning, while summative assessments provide the final high-level data needed to measure achievements and validate the overall teaching strategy. Both are essential components of a robust educational framework. Next slide. And that would be all. Thank you, everyone.